a horror story of somebody who didn't have their beneficiary set up. And so if it's all right, Derek, I'll let you take the reins and we will let you share your story to kind of capture everyone's attention, and we'll go from there.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here today. Hope you find this helpful. But yeah, beneficiaries is something that comes up a lot at both URS and PEHP. And as Brittany mentioned, there are a lot of people who don't have it set up. But I would also add to that, not just those that have set up, but those that are not current. I actually, where I'm positioned at our office, when I'm in the office, is right by the life insurance department. So I'm well aware of when these occurrences happen, and we have an out-of-date beneficiary who is named. What we have is we'll have an employee who passes away, and the grieving spouse calls to make a claim. And as we go to pay the beneficiary, we learn that our employee had previously been married, maybe divorced, say 10, 15 years ago, never changed their beneficiary. So guess who gets the beneficiary check? That's right, who we have listed as the beneficiary. So as Brittany talked about, it's very important to make sure you have your beneficiaries listed, but it's equally as important to make sure you have it accurate and up to date. I usually tell people that I talk to, every year during open enrollment, go log into your PEHP account, look under the certificates of coverage, and you can just confirm who you have as your beneficiary and if that is still accurate. But it just takes a few minutes to do every year, but it saves a lot of frustration later on down the road.
Awesome. Connie, can you share one with us?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny with what Derek had shared. On the URS side, it's a little bit different. So one of the questions that I knew we were going to have kind of for the Q&A is, what happens with beneficiary protocol if an employee gets divorced? Okay, and so what we do here on the URS side is, let's just say, I'm going to throw out an example that I've been married, me and that spouse were married, we have 2 or 3 children or 1 child together, whatever it may be. We get divorced and then I get remarried. URS actually has a protocol that says, well, if I have been divorced and I never updated my beneficiaries, we default in saying, okay, but you were divorced, so we are going to pay out the new spouse. And so what has happened is there have been cases where we, through that protocol, pay out a new spouse who wasn't listed. That old spouse that was listed was never updated, but we're considering and saying, well, that was a divorce. And now that spouse doesn't get any pay or money, even though the URS member is thinking, well, I left that old spouse on there because I have children with that person, and I would prefer that money go to them. So with the protocol for divorce, please make sure, if you're getting divorced and you want to maintain and keep that ex-spouse as your beneficiary, again, maybe because you have children listed, that you re-log in, update that, and make sure that you list that ex-spouse again. Because if you get married, there is a protocol where we just say, okay, you were divorced, maybe you just didn't update that, and we'll pay out to a new spouse. So just be aware of some of those nuances and some of those things that may occur, and we could discuss a few other things through the Q&A part of this. So yeah, you just want to make sure, with us, it's all about money. You want to make sure that money gets to the right place. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Connie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Okay. I think our next step is, if this is so easy, if this is so quick, how do we do this, right? If we want to get off this call today, set up our beneficiaries, can you walk us through with URS how we do that?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and we should see that pop up here in a second. That just kind of says beneficiaries. One of the big things I do want to mention, even before we jump into this, is it is important to keep track of our beneficiaries, because things are going to change throughout our career, right? We get divorced, we get married, we get widowed, whatever it may be. So I just want to show everyone how to update their beneficiaries. And if you haven't listed anyone, how we list those. As Brittany discussed earlier, of our members, we have about 87,000 that do not have beneficiaries listed. And according to, we call them death benefit advisors, there are probably about 2 or 3 balances. So these are 401k balances that they just go unclaimed every year because there's nobody that we can contact. We don't have good contact information when a URS member passes away. So please keep these things updated. Okay. So as we jump in, the way we update our URS beneficiaries, we need to log in to our URS account. So that is www.urs.org. Log into our member account, and we'll be able to access beneficiaries by either going to the Manage Profile tab or the View Summary tab for our beneficiaries. So 2 different places. Once we have access to that beneficiary listing, we can now review it, make sure, hey, we've got our beneficiaries listed correctly if we want that. If we don't have anyone listed, then we'll go to the new, and we're going to be able to list one of 3 type of beneficiary, a person, a trust, or other. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because trust me, this is a 30-minute presentation on its own. If you have a trust, I would defer that you work with your estate planner on whether it's best to use a trust or to list a person. So let's talk real quickly about what we have to have for that person. The only thing that you have to list is the person's full name, so their first and last name. But it's going to help us identify and make sure we get this payment to the right person by listing date of birth, your relationship. So is it a niece, nephew, child, parent, brother, sibling, whatever it may be, and the address of that individual. If you're like me, I don't know, this may be a funny story, but if any of you, I'm Polynesian, my wife is Tongan, so we see a lot of the same names in our family. A lot of the same names are used, grandparents' names and things like that. So again, anything that we have to help distinguish who that actual person is so that there is an argument of who gets that money, okay? If we're going to list a trust, we need the name of the trust, the creation date, the type of trust that it is, revocable, irrevocable, and then whoever the trustee is and that contact information or mailing address when we list that person. If we're going to list other, so here's a nice thing. Let's say I just don't have somebody that I can think of to list as my beneficiary. You can list a charitable organization. You can list a religious organization. You would just put that name in and then their address or contact info. That's all we have to do when we're listing those beneficiaries. You can list primary and contingent beneficiaries. Okay, so just make sure that you're listing that correctly. Your primary beneficiary is going to be that first step that we go to. And then if that primary beneficiary is deceased, then we move on to the contingent beneficiary. Okay. Lastly here, you can just list it once and then use the copy to move that if you have a 401k and a 457 and an IRA and a Roth IRA. So if you click that copy to, once you've listed those beneficiaries, you can just mirror them onto wherever you'd like to put those. Okay. That's all I have, Brittany, on that. Wanted to keep that quick. So.
You're awesome, Connie. Thank you. All right, Derek, can you show us how, or walk us through, if we want to update our beneficiaries for PHP, how do we do that?
Well, it's very similar. You just need to log into your PHP account. Once you're logged in, look under My Benefits and Coverage. You can go in there and just make changes to what you need to do for your beneficiaries. If you don't want to do it online there, you can go to our main page under Find a Form, and you can actually just download the beneficiary change form and submit that to us. But a lot of the same rules apply as far as naming a trust, if that's what you want to do. Again, we need name, date of birth, relationship, address. A lot of the same issues there. We will do our due diligence in trying to find whoever it is that you've named. But the more information you can give us, the easier it is.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Derek. So I see that there are a few questions in the Q&A, so we will get to them if we can. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a quick bite. We're making it as quick as possible, 20 minutes. So we're going to go through some Q&A with Derek and Connie that we had, and a lot of them are actually the same questions that we're receiving in the chat. So that's great. Sounds like we're all kind of thinking the same thing. So I guess you guys kind of alluded to this a little bit before. Just so our employees know, if an employee does get divorced or just has a change in beneficiary, right? Like, what is the protocol for URS? I believe you guys might have different protocols. So Connie had kind of alluded that they see that the divorce happened and they recognize the new. If you guys can kind of answer that, that would be awesome for both parties.
Well, on the PHP side, again, we don't know intent. Connie brought up a very good example of where maybe the person wanted to leave it to the ex-spouse to take care of the children that were involved. Yeah. There are so many different scenarios where that's possible, where they want to keep it with the ex-spouse because, you know, maybe it didn't end on good terms and they have a conscience or something. They don't want to, they feel like they owe it to that person. We don't know the intent. So unless we have it in writing, we're going to go with who you have instructed us to pay, even though that might have been accurate 10 years ago and it's not now. That's what we have in writing at that point. And so we don't make any assumptions as to, well, they probably want it with their new spouse. We don't know what they wanted. So that's the protocol on the PHP side.
Perfect. Connie?
Yeah. On the URS side, it is just a little bit different. And of course, you know, your beneficiaries are going to argue and make claim, right, for their portion of what they're owed. But yes, if you get divorced, and so let's say this, let's say I started for the state in 2010, and then in 2018, I get divorced. I've never updated my beneficiaries. In 2020, I get remarried, and then I pass away tomorrow. Well, you know, the claim from the new spouse is going to be, well, he didn't, that person didn't know to update their beneficiary listing, but I was the person who should have got it. In most cases, we're going to pay that out to the new spouse, just assuming that it wasn't re-entered. Now, of course, there are going to be cases where it goes into probate or it isn't immediately paid out, where we've got to do some research on that if children are involved and things like that. But again, you just want to try to keep that updated as best you can, because there is no just one answer here of, if you get divorced, this is what we do, or this is what we don't do. There's a protocol that we go through, and in a lot of cases, that new spouse are going to feel is entitled to something if they just weren't listed because of negligence or you forgot to do that. So
cool. Thank you. Okay. This is one of the questions I had, and it looks like we had it in our Q&A as well. Does a beneficiary need to be a certain age to be listed as a beneficiary?
To be listed, you can list at any age you want, but unfortunately, we cannot write a life insurance check to a minor. So, and this comes up quite often. This is very, it is quite common. And what we do at PHP is, generally speaking, we follow whoever gets the custody of the children gets the money. In that case, so the check that they get, it would say pay to so and so for the care and benefit of the minor, and so that's great, and it goes to them. The problem that you run into, and you hear this horror story in the industry a lot. I'm not aware of any of these that happen specifically, but once we send that check, we're out of it. We have no control over what happens to that money. But you hear all the time of people that hey, I know this was meant for little Johnny's college fund here, but we could really use this money to update our kitchen, and by the time they get to college, we'll have paid that back. So let's just do that. And things happen, and the easiest way, like Connie said earlier, if you have a trust set up, name the trust in the name of that child, and we can pay the trust, and then you would again, however that trust is set up, as to how it would be distributed and when. But that's the easiest, cleanest option if you have a minor, is to work with a an estate attorney and get a trust set up.
Cool.
Yep. So no different, nothing different or nothing for me to add on the URS side to that. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So there are a few questions. So anyone whose questions did not get answered, I will make sure I reach out to you and we'll make sure you get your questions answered. Connie and Derek, I just want to ask one last thing. So we've all done it. We've all gone to a website to log in and you can't log in. You can't remember your password, right? You can't remember your login name, whatever the case may be. So if an employee goes to log in, they can't log in, can you please describe the best way for them to contact whoever they need to contact to kind of get this ball rolling and get it set up? And I'll let Connie go first if that's okay.
Yeah, for URS, it's very simple. Anyone here who's having issues with logging in, you're going to want to call us. And so I'm going to give you that phone number. I don't have a way to add it to the chat. So if somebody wants to write it down and add it into the chat, it would be through our retirement savings plan department. They can reset passwords. They can also walk you through establishing an account if you've never done it. They do all of that help. Their phone number is 801-366-7720. So 801-366-7720. And that's our retirement savings plan department would help you with all of that login information.
And if for some reason they didn't get that number, it's urs.org, right?
Correct.
They can go to and still gain the same information. Perfect. Derek, how about you?
Same. Just contact our customer service at 801-366-7555 and let them know that, you need to update or reset the password, and they can do that for you.
Perfect. And your website's php.org, right?
That's right.
Perfect. Okay, well, our time is coming to a close. I wanted to give a special thanks to Derek and Connie for being a part of this webinar and sharing their knowledge with us so that we can get this done. I'd like to end the call with a call to action. If you're listening to this call and you don't have your beneficiary set up, or even if you do and you just want to make sure that you have who you want on, listed as your beneficiary, take a minute, log in, make sure you know how to do it, make sure you have things set how you want. If you don't have your beneficiary, get it set up. It's super easy, super quick, and it's just something you'll be glad that you have done when it's done. So anyway, thank you so much for being a part of this. I want to remind everyone to be looking for those slices of benefit advice that'll be coming your way each month. We're super excited to be able to include that and to move forward with this new initiative. And I just hope you all have an excellent day. Thanks for participating.
Thank you, Brittany.